Hey everybody, welcome to OTL Unite podcast. OTL Unite has always been about the people. It's not about one person, about one leader, but it's about all of us and how this pandemic, how this lockdown is affecting people, not just the big people, but the little guys. The guy that goes to work from 9 to 5, the single mom and her two kids, the elderly woman who lives alone in an apartment, about the little people and how this lockdown is affecting them. Because again, we're all being affected in different ways, and OTL Unite wants to share their voice, give the little guy a voice to speak out. And I think by doing that, it gives a face, basically, a face to what's going on and how it's affecting him or her or them or anybody, how this pandemic is affecting the people. Because again, in order for this pandemic to stop, it's going to be stopped by the people, not by the big V, not by putting something over your face, not by scrubbing your hands a million times, but by the people. When the people stand up and say, enough is enough. So basically, that's what we want to do. And we encourage you guys to reach out to OTL Unite and share your stories with us so we can throw them out there. Show the world how this so-called pandemic is affecting you. But yeah, our first person we spoke to, great guy. He was recently at a birthday party, and that birthday party got shut down. Well, it didn't really get shut down. It was they were being harassed by the cops, and you're going to listen to his story in a few minutes and kind of get an idea exactly what he experienced through that being harassed by the police, and basically a few more stories and experiences he has experienced as, like I said, just a normal guy trying to live his life through this so-called pandemic. Enjoy.
Was there,
Yep.
the aunt of all these grandchildren, or three of the grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
And it was to be a birthday party for them. We were going to have dinner. And we were actually just sitting down at dinner. And there's a knock on the door. Policeman's there. My son went to the door, and the policeman said, there's too many. Whether he said too many or gave us a maybe he said that they noted 5 adults in the house,
Mm-hmm.
and that's against the law, and they have to leave. My son said, "Well, no, they're not leaving. You have no right to tell them to leave." And, "Oh, yes, we do." And I don't know how the conversation went after that, but it ended up with the police officer saying, "Well, we'll get a warrant and we'll come in and we'll actually take them out." And so he closed the door. They went to get their warrant, and I think now it's about 5:45 or 6 o'clock. And so we sat down and had dinner. Mind you, we had to have quite a chat with the children because they were a little bit intimidated by this. And we just explained to them that we have some rules being made by some political people that are against our Constitution, that are telling us that we can't get together, and that's just totally immoral and not legal. And so we will just carry on having dinner. They say they're going to get a warrant to come in and take us out. Well, if they get the warrant, we'll deal with that when the time comes. But they said, you don't have anything to worry about. Tonight you'll go to bed like you always do, and you'll wake up in the morning and you'll feel like you're going to have a good day. It's unfortunate that they're interrupting our dinner and our party. And I think, well, the 2 youngest ones, I don't think they really even, well, I don't know how much they appreciated of it. It was the ones in the in-between, 9 and 12, were quite concerned, and we, or 10 and 12, we had a little bit of additional chat with them to calm them down, and there's nothing to be afraid of. And they seemed to calm down, and so we carried on. So we had dinner. It wasn't exactly what we'd hoped it would be. And then, we had the birthday cake and all of that. And So by now it's about 7:30, quarter to 8, and they still haven't got their warrant. Anyway, it was time, you know, that was the end. So we talked strategy about how do we address this when we're all out there, you know, and it was a matter, well, you know, who goes first? And, you know, I forget exactly all the different rationales that came out, but anyway, I went first. And so when I got down to the bottom of the steps, a police officer's there, and he said, I need your identification. I said, well, what for? He said, because, you know, you've broken the law and all of that. And I said, well, I'm perfectly prepared to cooperate with you. He said, but we need to chat about a couple of things first. First of all, the law that you think you're enforcing is illegal because it's a counter to the Constitution. It was never approved under the Constitution. In addition to that, you swear an oath under the Police Services Act to basically defend our rights under the Constitution. And in fact, what you're doing is you're actually abusing or denying our rights under the Constitution. He said, well, that you can take up in court. And I said, yes, and we certainly intend to. And I forget what else got said after that, but then I gave him my driver's license. And then the others came out, and I guess my son did a video of pretty much all of it. It seems to play well at his house, but darn it all, he sent it over to me and there's no sound. And so we're working on getting that sorted out. But basically everybody was respectful and cooperative with the police. And the police were actually, you know, were respectful too. I mean, they weren't abusive in any way. But what we really noticed was that they have absolutely no understanding of the law. Mm-hmm. And in fact, the one officer said to me, he said, well, you know, this is, you know, so this is like a speeding ticket. And I said, no, it's not like a speeding ticket. A speeding ticket, somebody's violated the law. They violated a law that is constitutional. This, you're talking about a rule that has nothing, no standing under the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And, you know, your management is actually wasting your time on these kinds of things. I think it's a shame that you have to come out and get involved. In fact, I'm sure you probably would prefer not to be here. But during that conversation too, I did say to him that, you know, you think about it like this. This is a children's birthday party, and you guys are here to break it up. How would you feel if that was you? And he said, well, I don't have people over to my house, you know, because of the quarantine or the lockdown. I said, well, you know, I'm sorry to hear that. But in any case, the police officers really didn't understand the full implications of why they were there. Basically, oh, and this is the other thing. It's appalling in Canada what's happening. I mean, you know, when you think about police states and dictatorships, the first thing they do is they create a snitching mentality in the people, and mm-hmm. There's no way this could have happened without a neighbor having called them, because there was just nothing unusual about it, other than there were some cars parked on the street. People did come in, and a couple of people, my daughter-in-law's mother and father, came and left. They didn't stay because they seemed to have, you know, some fears about, you know, spreading the virus, et cetera, et cetera. So that's about what it was all about. And so now we are proceeding with, you know, pleading not guilty and will fight the fines.
Mm-hmm.
In that connection, we've actually contacted the Fight the Fines at Rebel News because they are now providing lawyers for this if they take it up. And so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of these fines disappear or they just keep getting pushed back, so I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah, well, that's what we're doing. Mind you, I'd love to have a day in court on this one because, I mean, it's totally illegal what they're doing. And now that we got some lawyers working with us, and we will have a lawyer, that's the thing. And, I've been paying quite a bit of attention to Rocco Galati and his advice on these matters. And that's where it's given me confidence to, take a strong stand.
Mm-hmm. And I've listened to quite a few people actually too around the world who've been watching Canada and what's been happening here, and they tell people do not pay those fines.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No way.
Okay.
So, and I think one of the more important threads of the story I forgot to tell you about.
Mm-hmm.
So that was Friday night. Sunday, about midday, the police raid. My daughter-in-law has a dance school, and my son has a CrossFit gym.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them were raided.
Wow.
So it really is a police state. I mean,
It is.
it's one thing to raid the party on a snitch, but then to start following up other things that they're involved in, I mean, that's police state action.
Oh yeah, it's 100% fear tactics right there that they're doing.
Yeah. So it's a shame, but I'd say 90% of the problem is that 90% of the people are playing along with it.
Yeah, I've seen for the most part, around 50% of people agree with what we're doing and say, no, these lockdowns aren't doing anything. They're doing more harm than good. But the bad part is most of these people aren't doing or saying anything about it.
That's right. And they're putting on a mask and going out there and, playing the game. That's another thing. I certainly don't believe in the masks. I mean, supposedly I'm one of the vulnerable ones at 79 years old. And, but I take care of myself and have a good immune system.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't worn a mask. Well, actually, I did wear a mask. I was over at the Ottawa hospital, and get in there. They had to have a mask, so I put a mask on to go in. But I have not worn a mask in a store or anything else, and I've dealt with the people who have come and accosted me. I had one incident at Coles at Billings Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
I decided I'm not going to push the issue hard enough because I was looking for some ribbons for Christmas wrap, and they might not even have it anyway, but they denied entry and what have you. And so I, got the store manager's name and whatnot. I wrote a letter to the CEO of Indigo, and I got a very unsatisfactory letter back about how they're, protecting the health of their staff and all of this and that. It seemed to go right over their head. That one, the law says that they have to acknowledge people with a mask exemption. And two, and they deny, and then they said on the basis of this is, private property. Well, I'm sorry, no, it's not private property. You open for business, that means the public is allowed to come in. You cannot claim private property under the Trespass Act. And so anyway, but they don't get any of this.
No.
But I let that one go.
Mm-hmm.
I had other things on my mind, but if I ran into that again, I'd almost be tempted to take the person to small claims court.
Yeah, and I think that's what people need to start doing to get these corporations to stop what they're doing, discriminating against others.
Well, there's a Loblaws that I shop at, and I guess it was back on I think it was the 13th of January, 14th is when the lockdown came down, I was in the store and the manager approached me and said, starting tomorrow, I'm not going to be able to let you in the store without a mask. And I said, why is that so? Well, because of the new rules. And I said, well, the rule isn't changed about masks. People with a mask exemption can come in. So I do appreciate your giving me its notice and whatnot. And so I wrote a letter to Bob Laws on that. And I still haven't heard back. However, a couple of days later, I went shopping, and no problem. I went in. They had changed. Apparently, they'd had instructions to let people with an exemption in.
Yep, they're again. I'll give some of these corporations credit. Some of them are actually letting people in because they realize the law and the trouble that they could get into if they deny entry.
Well, that's right. And the trouble is you never know what you're dealing with there. You're dealing with somebody who's paranoid and trying to protect themselves and everybody from this virus, or is it somebody, who is, open for business? And if they have that paranoia that the government sort of generated, the fear, then they react poorly. If they don't have as much of that fear, then they think in terms of good business.
Mm-hmm.
And not enough of them think in terms of good business. And then, of course, if you take the likes of the Starbucks and all that sort of thing, well, they're just, kids in there working for a big corporation and they just do as they're told. So it's, service isn't the issue. I had another incident at Rogers on Bank Street.
Mm-hmm.
Over the years, I've been very dissatisfied with Rogers. I used to deal with them in business, and there were some horrible things they tried to pull. But it was if you needed to make a change of any kind, it was always a way they would try to rip you off. And I was just, I'd had enough of Rogers. Meanwhile, my home TV was on Rogers and internet was on Rogers. Well, I retired and I quit the TV anyway because I hardly ever watch it. And finally, I wasn't satisfied with the service I was getting on Rogers, particularly the speed. And I think when you get up near your limit, they actually start to slow you down. So I switched to a new provider. Mind you, it was a Rogers guy who came to check the circuits and make sure it was good for the other provider. But since I've been on V Media, absolutely no problems. It's been just wonderful. But anyway, I had to take my modem back to a Rogers store. So I took it back to the store. Now, the store has a buzzer outside, and the door is locked. Well, actually, no, the door's not locked. You can open the door, but then there's a steel bars door behind that, and they have to come and open that. So he came and opened it, and he pointed to a chair he needed me to sit in. Well, he went and, looked this thing up and got me a receipt. Well, there were all kinds of problems, and they just couldn't get this thing checked out, and I'm sitting in the chair. And I guess one of the problems they had in this typical Rogers, I brought it back on the day that the service was canceled,
Mm-hmm.
or the day after the service was canceled. But they didn't see it as canceled on the file, and so they couldn't take back the modem and refund it and give me a receipt for it. So I'm sitting there, and then their manager comes out and tells me I can't stay in the store. I said, just a minute. Well, what's the problem? He said, well, you don't have a mask. And, well, I have a mask exemption. I'm not supposed to wear them. Well, no, you can't stay in the store. I said, well, I'm not going to make this as difficult for you as I could, but I could ask your name and I could take you to court. However, I will I will go outside while you get this thing done because I have other things to do and I just don't have time to deal with it. And so I went out, but I decided to be a bit of a bastard on them. I just went out behind the steel door, the iron gate, so to speak, and I just leaned against the door with it open. And they were still trying to get it. They were taking so long to get this thing done. And meanwhile, they were saying, "It's freezing in here. Can you hurry up?" She said to the other guy. And so I thought, well, I thought I'll let them just freeze a little bit and get the thing done. Well, finally we got it done.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of thing that's going on. I mean, they're just employees and what have you. But
Yeah, just people, just like how the cops say they're following orders, we see the same thing with these employees following orders. And your story, as I know, there have to be hundreds, maybe thousands of others.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. And it's one of those things. We're not going looking for it, but I'm certainly not putting a mask on. That's for sure. I just had a delivery done here. Excuse me, I'm just going to.
Yep.
But that's pretty much the story, my experience, and I guess I've given you a good idea of where I stand on a lot of this stuff.
You do. I normally before the conversation, I let the people know that I'm recording this conversation. Are you okay with that?
No, that's fine. No problem.
Okay, because what we are trying to do for OTL is basically just compile stories. I just felt a calling where we gotta stop focusing on the big people and start looking at the little people. How is this lockdown affecting the everyday Joe, basically?
Well, oh yeah. If you really want to get into the really serious stuff, it's what they're doing to the kids.
Oh yeah.
And putting masks on kids in school. Well, just one example. There are some dentists out there now who are saying the mask is not a good thing, especially for kids who have braces on their teeth, because you get a buildup of bacteria inside.
Mm-hmm.
Not good for your teeth. So there's all kinds of little things that come up, and who knows, how much weight you need to give to that. But definitely, the oxygen issue is a valid and serious one. I'll put it this way. I've seen this done twice now, putting on a mask and measuring the oxygen intake. And it's below danger levels according to fire department regulations for the for firemen. When they're dealing with an issue, that they need to have their oxygen above a certain level, and when you put on that mask and wear it for a relatively short period of time, it's below that level. Now that's okay for a brief period of time, but you see these people in stores, they're wearing them all day long.
Yeah, that's the thing. People at the beginning were saying you're just wearing it for 20 minutes, but did you come from school? Did you come from work where you were there for at least 8 hours? So it's not just 20 minutes in the store.
Well, that's right. No, it's and not to mention that the masks don't do anything useful anyway.
No, and then you have to argue people that they say that your oxygen is not going down when you put the mask on. Of course it is. Whenever you cover your mouth or nose, your oxygen intake will go down. It's just common sense.
No, but it's been measured. It's actually been measured, and it not only goes down, it goes down to a dangerous level for any period of time, and that has actually been measured by instruments. So
yep.
That isn't just an opinion of anybody. That's a scientific fact.
Yep.
So that's where we're at. And the delivery that just came to my house is called "Fake Invisible Catastrophes and Threats of Doom" by Patrick Moore. Mm-hmm. Do you know Patrick Moore?
No, I haven't heard of him.
Well, he was the founder of Greenpeace.
Okay.
In 1987, he left Greenpeace because he was the only qualified scientist in Greenpeace, And the way things had unfolded, they had grown significantly internationally, and it had become overrun by essentially environmentalist hacks with no scientific qualifications, whatever, all in basically looking at fundraising. It became a fundraising organization, and they were bringing on the next thing they wanted to do was to have a worldwide ban on chlorine. Well, what does chlorine do? Yes, it can be toxic. In fact, its toxicity is why it's used in so many products in our healthcare system where you need that toxicity of chlorine. So, I mean, it was just stupidity. And so he finally left. And he wrote a book called, Confessions of a Greenpeace Dropout. And something to do with a sensible environmentalist. And, well, I read his book, and then I actually met him on a couple of occasions, and just an amazing man. Well, he's now, basically, COVID is another one of these fake invisible catastrophes, but he's got, he deals with all kinds of things that, that they've used to try and scare us and what have you. And he's exposing all of this stuff. But his book just came out, and I ordered it right away.
Yeah, I'll have to give that a look-see on Amazon.
Oh yeah, it's there. And so that's the story.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on and sharing that with me. I'm sure a lot of people will love to hear this and give them courage too.
Well, my daughter was there, and my daughter has been standing up to the school and what have you. It's just amazing how ignorant the school boards and the school principals are. Mm-hmm. And they're just completely, the ones that she's dealing with, they're just completely tied in to the fear and the bureaucracy. And, they claim science on their side. There's no science that supports anything that they're doing. And she has sent them all kinds of evidence and whatnot. And what we're planning to do is this is going to get exposed someday, and we're going to go back and launch lawsuits against them. So that's my daughter. You might find you'll even get a better take from her than you get from me. She's been, I have to say, she's sort of almost been my mentor on this. But I guess beyond that, I really don't have much more to tell you.
Well, no, like I said, I really do appreciate you coming on and being able to share your story. Like I said, I know there are other people out there experiencing the same thing or maybe worse than what you went through and are going through.
Oh, yeah, and for lesser reasons, too.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We did have 6 adults in the house. So the rule says not 6 adults in the house, but, I mean, look at what they did with that kid out in Calgary. They're out playing pond hockey, and they come and want to, they want to arrest him for playing pond hockey. I mean, how insane is this world becoming?
Yeah, or even this group that feeding the homeless and getting ticketed and things like that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And I read about that, too. Oh, that's just appalling.
Yeah, you gotta look at people like, are you guys nuts?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I have to say, if you're collecting all of this and going to be able to put it out there, geez, I can't say how much I appreciate what you're doing.
Hey, yeah. It's not a problem. Like I said, we see the injustices happening, and we want to give the little guy a voice as well, not just the big guy.
Well, you're on the right track then.